Hello there, friends. We are almost to the finish line with the Bombermechs. We've got our final island ahead of us, Pinnacle Robotics. And we've got our mechs up on screen. Henry Kwan still piloting the Pierce mech with boosters. Kaz in the Bombling mech with fully upgraded shield tanks and conservative. And then we've got a new addition to the roster, Isaac Jones, currently sitting in the Exchange mech. I think I will eventually be switching the Pierce mech pilot for Isaac, as that'll allow him to get more XP. Oh, I'm also just showing that I do have some pilots on the bench. We've got one of our starter pilots with Opener and Skilled. We've got Rosie Rivets, and we still have Ralph Carlson. If we can get through this island, we're probably going to be selling off a lot of those friends for extra rep. And we can see that Pinnacle has Tumblebugs and Blobbers ahead of us, which is mildly irritating, but I predict that this will be a little bit less overall chaotic than Archive was. But we do have the addition of Boss Tier Vec running around, so this could be a goof. I see right off the bat, I only have two choices, and my mandatory choice for Pinnacle is at AI training, which is a Defend the Robots mission. So I think I elect to just get this out of the way. We've got a pair of Tumblebugs, the Blobber Leader, and a Alpha Mosquito, as well as the Shell Scion. We're far enough along in the run that the damage resistance from the Shell Scion is largely not that big a deal, but I think that's also partially why I left Henry in the Pierce mech, was his opener would help me kind of power through the Shell Scion if it was around. So this particular mission type, I think, is pretty strong for the Bombermechs, as they have the ability to quickly, snatch up one of the mine-laying robots out of danger, should the need arise. And this is kind of a free turn. We only have the Blobber Bomb as a threat to the grid, and the Pierce mech can safely push it, so that it is no longer of any concern to us. With the added benefit of just getting rid of that Blobber Leader. We don't have to worry about it anymore. And then, letting the Tumblebugs do their thing is really no big deal. But we are going to take this opportunity to deploy a shield tank. And then a little trick you can do with Tumblebugs is you can apply shields to their boulders. This will cause them to waste their action. And then I think the enemy will ignore them for the rest of the run, barring strange circumstances. And then, we'll just do a little bit of a reshuffle and keep the enemy contained on their side of the board. So that's a pretty strong opener. Now, normally when you get to the fourth island, that snowball effect should be running. You should be having a relatively easy time of things. But with that said, I think this run still took me well over 40 minutes. This island, rather. And that's just because, it's just how the Bombermechs are, or at least how I approach the Bombermechs. I'm sure there's a way to really play speed chess with them, but the fact that I know that any given turn can be solved, in numerous wacky ways, really slows me down when I play the Bombermechs. And that is, while playing, not that big a deal, but for the convenience of the viewership, it is a little bit irritating. So again, I have tried to preemptively condense things in post as best I can. And you'll be seeing evidence of that throughout the picture. Here's another little nice trick you can do on these mission types, is if you can push one of the robots onto one of their cryo mines, and this will keep them safe. They'll stop moving around, and they can absorb a point of damage. And now we have, both of the tanks out, so our action advantage has ballooned, and it should be smooth sailing for the rest of this particular mission. This is a nice combination of spawn blocking and freezing, distractions. It's a good day for the Bombermechs. And really, we could just, we could just press play on this turn. Nothing especially awful would happen. But, we've got one more turn ahead of us, so we can do a little bit of damage control. We will make them destroy the Shell Scion for us, and then deliberately waste the Firefly's time with shields. And now all Tumblebug munitions have been put in safe temporary stasis. So it's our final turn, and we have a pretty extreme action advantage. Only 2 enemies. It's a 2v5, and we're just gonna clean up things here, nice and tidy. And I really should think about putting Isaac in the Pierce mech if I am keen on leveling him up, but I think it takes me a while to make that call. We also were lucky to get the first time pod of 2 for the 4th island. We get the Smoke Pellets Science Class weapon. I'll equip it for now. I mean, there's no real reason not to. There's a spare slot on the exchange mech. But the Smoke Pellets, they're limited use. They're melee range. Depending on the science mech in question, they're not especially useful. But the fact that the exchange mech is going to be in the thick of things, I equipped it thinking maybe it would be relevant, potentially. I don't think I actually ever used them, though. So sinking that core into them was a little bit of a waste, but that's okay. I now have a choice between a shield generator mission, which can be irritating. Take less than 3 grid damage, protect the defense lab. But we're the Bombermechs. We're the strongest squad in the game. Arguably second strongest. Depends on where you value the Mist Eaters. So I fear no man nor bug. And I elect to pick this usually pretty irritating mission variety. Certainly isn't going to do anything to help the speed of this island, as I'm going to be staring at the board state for a long time, trying to figure out the optimal way to go. Even deployment, I'm puzzling away. So we have to destroy the shield generator, but the moment we do, all of the shields on the field will disappear. So you have to be careful with how things shake out, because we do have multiple threats to the grid here. We've got 1, 2, 3, we've got 4, 5. 5 threats to the grid. And depending on the timing of when the shield generator is disabled, things could get a little goofy. I stare at this board for a long time, and then I come to an interesting conclusion, which is that if I let the Blobber Bomb destroy the shield generator, it will be the last enemy to go. This will free up the rest of my actions to be, a little bit more proactive. And this way we kill that blobber so we don't have any more bombs to worry about. The only downside was I kind of wasted the exchange mechs action, but I elect to not use a temporal reset, even though I've got 2 in the bank. A little bit of an extravagance. I maybe could have set myself up for a slightly stronger board state on the next turn, but I was happy enough just getting the shields disabled and having to deal with things with fresh eyes on the next turn. Now, that took me, I don't know, 3-4 minutes maybe just to see the solve. So we've got a new turn here with 4 threats to the grid. So things are a little bit spicier. We don't have the these shields to fall back upon. But I see that if I use the boosters, I can push the Mosquito and the Alpha Firefly out of harm's way. That just means we got to do something about the unstable boulder. But the exchange mech is handy for dealing with that. Indeed, we can set up an enemy for an unpleasant surprise. It will be minus a Tumblebug. And we still have a spare action, which seems like a good time for the Bombling Mech to deploy a shield tank. And we're on to turn 3. We're down to a relatively even 4v4 on our penultimate turn. Two threats to the grid, the Firefly Leader and the Tumblebug that's threatening a chain reaction of unstable boulder explosions. We can keep getting the Firefly Leader to do some work for us. Work smarter, not harder. And then let's just delay the, waste that Tumblebug's time deliberately. Can't be bad. I could have blocked the spawn with the Pierce Mech. Oh, okay, I did do that. Clever. I can just tank the Firefly attack and keep these spawns capped. So our final turn will be a 3v5, our favor. Which is a good position to be in. We're all about that action, economy, control, if at all possible. Ultimately, when you get down to it, that is the strength of the Bombermechs. Is the fact that the exchange mech is inherently capable of essentially trading one action for two enemy actions. This is also part of the reason why we will eventually see the Mist Eaters are very strong. The Smog mech is capable of really consistent 2-for-1s, sometimes even 3-for-1s, and you can just expand that utility as the run goes on. But they are much more reliant on, instead of positioning, they are capable of strong positioning plays, but they are in general are more relying on filling the map with smoke. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We will eventually get to the Mist Eaters. Indeed, I think they might be the next squad in my little list. So we have the grid protected. Everything is safe and sound. And that's another mission accomplished. We've got another power core. The question is whether I invest it in the Bombling Mech and try to get the double bombs online, which indeed I do. We're losing a little bit of tankiness and a little bit of speed on Kaz, but I'm hoping that he will have sufficient options no matter where he is on the map that I can deal with that later. Now I'm deciding on my next mission. We've got a block Vec spawning mission, which normally the Bombermechs are very strong at dealing with. The one asterisk on this particular mission is because we have the Cryo Mine modifier on this map seed. We start with a 6v3. So we need to kill Vec in order to start creating spawns. This could potentially be a problem, especially with the Shell Scion in play. But we will see how it shakes out here. Got a pair of Fireflies, a Tumblebug leader, and a Blobber to deal with. Fortunately, the Blobber is kind enough to freeze itself. So we have only 2 threats to the grid to worry about here on the first turn. And we can get a 2-for-1 thanks to the Pierce Mech. The AP cannon is just a delightfully strong weapon. Lots of flexibility. So we are not going to be getting... Oh, I guess we did get a spawn. I think because enemies froze themselves on the first turn, they count against the spawn limit. So we were somewhat fortunate in that we could actually get a spawn right off the bat. We can also dispose of an unstable boulder by switching the shield tank and having that thing both block a spawn and remove itself from the map. Get a little chip damage on the Scion. So we're at a 3v3 on our next turn. The Cryomines are definitely messing with the maximum efficiency of the Tumblebug leader. Hindsight being 2020. That was okay. There we go. We can put the Tumblebug leader in the line of friendly fire. And we still have some spawn blocking to do. Or at least on track in that regard. This will be my last turn to block a spawn. I'm confident in my ability to do so, but you just have to be, you need to remain cognizant of that. There have been occasions in the past when I forgot about this mission objective and kind of goofed myself over. One must needs always be a little bit careful. The grid is now protected. That just leaves the rest of our actions for cleaning up messes. Here's the first example of the double bomb dispensing. They need to be fired in at least 2 different cardinal directions. So sometimes getting both of them out can be a little tricky, as far as like getting the most optimal spot for all of them to be deployed. There was nothing really for that particular walking bomb to do, so in the name of science, I decided to freeze it and also shield it and see if anything happened at the end of the turn. Would it remain? Normally they're supposed to explode at the end of every round. I was curious to see if I could preserve one in cryostasis. This was all in the name of science. But I get to share my findings with all of you, and we can see that it doesn't matter. Frozen, shielded, they will be destroyed. It is inevitable. So, mission accomplished. We don't have anything left to worry about here. All we need to do is maybe get a little bit of extra experience milked out of this Firefly for the benefit of Isaac. And so we do. 1 measly XP goes to Isaac. So things are going well. We are well on track. Just 1 mission remains. I believe I'm going to fast forward a little bit in time as I think I do some shuffling around of pilots and mission selection. I see that we've got a destroy all the boom bots mission. That looked like potentially a bad time. We pop Rosie back in the exchange mech and put Isaac in the Pierce mech in order to get the more XP out of him. And also because the mission I do elect to pick is the kill 6 or fewer enemies mission here. I thought it looked like maybe the least crazy of the options available. I just have to be careful to not go too crazy on enemy destruction, which is sometimes easier said than done, especially when we have 1 HP robot enemies on the field. I am deploying my mechs in such a way that I'm hoping to bait the artillery bot attacks, because there was no real good spot to do my blobber bomb bait formation. It seemed like no matter where I was going to place my mechs, a bomb would land adjacent to a grid building. But then my baiting pays double dividends. Both of them wind up attacking my mechs, which was pretty cool. So we have 3 threats to the grid. Basically all of the Vec, not the robots, are the problems that must be immediately solved. And we also have our second time pod of the island to retrieve, if possible. This is a little bit of a tricky map for the exchange mech to deal with, as both the Firefly and the Mosquito are attacking in the same direction. And the Blobber Bomb would only be safe to switch with the Firefly leader. But, you know, I said that the mission objective is to avoid killing enemies, but why not just go crazy? Why not kill 2 of them with a single action? At the very least, that got rid of the Blobber Bomb. And then I'm going to be doing a defensive play to solve the Firefly leader. We will block the spawn with the Mosquito, and now we are at half our kill cap. And we've still got 3 turns to go. So we're going to be running it a little bit close for comfort here. This turn is basically a 3v4, and as predicted, we've got 3 threats to the grid. The Bomb, the Mosquito, and the Firefly leader. Moving forward a little bit in time to save me from having you look at me waffling and weighing my options. We just continue destruction. You're now at 4 of 6 maximum kills allowed. Fortunately, we have another shield tank in our pocket. So the next turn will be a 5v5. Still pretty even, thanks to the magic that is a conservative pilot with deployable tanks. So we have essentially 4 threats to the grid instead of 5, because the power plant is shielded. The Tumblebug would disable the shield, and then the Blobber Bomb would destroy the power plant. But we are nothing if not flush with options. It's just a question of how quickly do I start to see a solve materialize. So a 2 for 1. And now the southern grid buildings are fully protected. And we should be in the clear now with 2 actions remaining. If we can, it would be nice to preserve the shields. But that's not always in the cards. But indeed, we can do so thanks to the double bomblings and our last shield tank. It can block the Tumblebug's attack. And we get to do some spawn blocking. It's a little bonus. Curious why I elected to do that. Maybe because I just didn't want another boulder taking up space. Oh, it's because the Tumblebug destroyed itself. I didn't want to prevent it from doing me that convenience. So we have 2 legitimate threats to the grid for our final turn, and 5 actions with which to do something about it. That math's in my favor. So by this juncture, the grid is all set. It's all in good shape. We are just trying to line up a kill for Isaac, if possible. That was maybe a bit of a misplay. I could have engineered the destruction of that Tumblebug. I could have shot it and then finished it off with a bomb, or I could have hit it with the bomb first and then shot it. But it's okay. Perhaps fatigue was setting in. This was my 4th island of a pretty long recording session. We get our last non-island reward time pod and power core. So for our boss fight, I decide not to mess around. We want to have one of our pilots with opener in the Pierce mech. We can stick Isaac back in the exchange mech for now. That should be fine. And then, having never used the smoke pellets, we decide to maybe get rid of the +1 use. And then get some speed upgrades on the bombling mech. Always a good decision. I believe our final opponent is the Scarab Leader, which is honestly one of the less nasty bosses. But it's also got a Tumblebug Leader as a backup dancer, as well as a Tumblebug and a Blobber. This is going to be a pretty tough fight. It's very difficult to figure out where I was going to deploy. It would be nice to bait the Blobber Bomb if possible, but then we have the Tumblebugs to worry about. And they are closer to the corporate tower than I would like them to be. So I deploy in the hopes of baiting the Blobber Bomb, and sadly I'm not sure if I'm successful. Alas, I am not. So it is 5 threats to the grid. Actually, more like 4, kind of. I mean, if the Tumblebug's attack goes off without it being... The Tumblebug leader, rather, the chain reaction would destroy the Blobber Bomb, thus negating the threat it poses. But this turn took me a while to figure out, and I was still not happy with my solve. Because once again, for the 4th and final time on this run, I think I was unable to save one of the grid buildings here. There probably was a solution, I just did not see it. But if you see it, by all means, share with your boy. I'm always eager to hear. What I wind up doing is, I have to disrupt the most damaging attacks if I can, and I also have to save the corporate tower. So those are the 2 things that have to be addressed, which the exchange mech can do with ease. That just leaves the other Scarab, and the Bomb, and the Tumblebug leader. So I shield that building, knowing that the bomb chain reaction will destroy the blobber bomb for me. That just leaves a single building undefended. I was hoping with 21% grid defense that maybe I would be lucky. But whenever you're banking on it, that's when it will never occur. And indeed, we lose yet another grid building. Hopefully the last one with population for the rest of this run. That was a tough first turn. This turn we've got 3 threats to the grid, so we don't have to worry about the Scarab leader necessarily. We do have to eventually destroy it, though. I elect instead to delete a Tumblebug. And then we can do some friendly fire. And I believe, thanks to the initiative order, the Scarab leader will push the Scarab Alpha such that we actually don't need to protect that building. I just don't know if I had the foresight to see what was about to happen. As you can see, the Scarab leader sets itself up for its own destruction. Thank you, Scarab leader. Our penultimate turn is a much more manageable 2v5 with reinforcements on the way. You really don't like to see all of those unstable boulders hanging out. It's worrisome. So it looks like for our final turn for the mission, we will have 3 enemies on the field. But a 3v5 is a good way to finish off this island. And I believe my final score for all of the runs in this series, even though I did lose, I think, a single grid health on every island, I still wind up, I think, with the highest score I've had so far. The closest to a perfect run since I began this series. Really, the only thing we have to worry about is the mosquito on this turn. So it looks like I'm getting a little bit fancy messing around. Okay, engineer a way to just kill the Tumblebug leader. It was a little bit extravagant. And I guess that mosquito was targeting nothing. So that whole turn was just trying to engineer a creative kill on the Tumblebug leader, and it's fine. So the final decisions we have to make include our Perfect Island reward and the final reputation store. We've once again got the Smoke Mortar, and one day it will have its time in the sun. But it is not this day. Instead, I like to go with Adam, as I consider my final pilot roster. And then the weapons available to us include 2 Prime class weapons, the Cryo Launcher and Networked Shielding. And this whole run, the Exchange Mech has basically had a free slot open. You're going to be using Force Swap basically every turn. So it's nice to get a passive on the Exchange Mech, and Network Shielding is fine. We'll take a bunch of extra XP, or HP, rather, for the whole squad. So basically, I sell my remaining bench, purchase as many power cores as I can, and upgrade my boys as high as I may, with the final squad being Kaz, Isaac, and Henry. So join me for the thrilling conclusion to the Bombermechs. Can they make it? With a final score of 39K. Tune in next time to find out.